Welcome back, FUD Nation. Today we discuss a tale of two Bitcoins. That's right, we're discussing the difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Now, for those of you who might be new to this debate, it can be a bit confusing. So we're gonna break this down real simply so you can understand what's going on here and why there is a battle of the Bitcoin. I'm Elio Trades, you're watching FUD TV, and today is all about Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. For those of you new to the Bitcoin story, the first Genesis block of the Bitcoin ledger was created in 2009 in January, and it's largely thought that this whole project was a response to the 2008 financial collapse and the irresponsible banking and lending practices matched with an incredible uptick in the printing of US dollars. Just look at this chart to see how much money was being printed as a result of the 2008 bailouts.
Whoa.
This was considered by Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, to be an abuse of power and a symptom of a centralized currency system. Therefore, Satoshi created Bitcoin, which is the world's first cryptocurrency built on blockchain. Essentially, Bitcoin is just a list of addresses and balances, much like in a bank. There's an address number, and then there's a private key to access that address. They're not tied to a person's identity or anything like that, so anyone who has access to the private key, which is a string of numbers and letters, can access the Bitcoin wallet. For this reason, it's kind of anonymous. The only way people find out who you are that's buying Bitcoin is when you go to a centralized exchange like Coinbase. It uses a proof of work algorithm, but so does Bitcoin Cash, so we don't really need to go into that. It has a fixed supply of 21 million coins, 17 million of which have already been mined and are in circulation right now. There have been countless Bitcoin bull runs and countless Bitcoin deaths. Just look at Bitcoin obituaries and you'll be able to see how many times Bitcoin has died and been mourned. In 2011, Bitcoin was used for its first commercial purchase. This was done through Craigslist, and a total stranger accepted 10,000 Bitcoins in exchange for 2 pizzas. Right now, 10,000 Bitcoin would run you between $70 and $100 million. Regardless, this created the first commercial application of this internet currency, and from then on, the rest is history. The interest in markets continued to swell around Bitcoin, but with that swell in price and usage came traffic. You can think of Bitcoin like a highway or a freeway. The more people want to use it, the more congested it can get. When the road gets congested, it gets more and more expensive to use the highway. This is where the whole debate started, as Bitcoin was once almost free to send and was usable almost like cash. And for that reason, an enclave of very powerful Bitcoin holders thought that this would be an opportunity to create a fork or a new coin that would take what was great about Bitcoin and make it more scalable, make it faster with lower fees, usable like cash. And now begins the story of Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin Cash was an evolution of a thought process. Scalability concerns were mounting throughout 2017. The first solution created for scalability was something called segregated witness, or SegWit. And although SegWit was implemented on the Bitcoin chain, that didn't address all the concerns of certain Bitcoin whales, namely Roger Ver and Jihan Wu. The Bitcoin Cash proponents believed that in order to return Bitcoin to its original functionality, you needed to upgrade the block size. You can think of this as adding lanes to the freeway. Bitcoin Cash supporters claim that their vision is closer to Satoshi's original vision for Bitcoin, and thus they claim that they are actually the original Bitcoin. And this is where it really gets sticky, as claiming that Bitcoin Cash is the original Bitcoin has been one of the hottest points of contention within this whole debate. Regardless, it's worth noting that Bitcoin Cash is much faster to send and has much lower fees. However, just like original Bitcoin supporters foresaw, this 8 megabyte block size wouldn't be enough, and now they're being forced to fork again to 32 megabytes. So now let's talk about the debate that rages between the Bitcoin Cash community and the Bitcoin community. The debate between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash started with the scaling solution, but it's become a lot bigger than that now. The original Bitcoin community believed that you should figure out how to scale on-chain without needing to do a hard fork. When a coin hard forks, it preserves the initial history, transaction history of the original chain, but creates a new set of rules to operate from after a certain block. This means that both chains share an initial history, but after a certain point are completely separate. Now, the need to hard fork in the minds of many Bitcoin supporters severs the community, fractures the community, and creates a lack of backwards compatibility, meaning if you had built some applications that work with the Bitcoin blockchain, then you can no longer use those on the new fork. Forks are not backwards compatible, which is one of the biggest issues. But even bigger than that issue is the concept of co-opting the Bitcoin name, which is the largest allegation that is being thrown at the Bitcoin Cash community. Roger Ver, who owns Bitcoin.com, at one point listed Bitcoin Cash as Bitcoin with just the BCH ticker next to it. And this is on Bitcoin.com, which led, of course, many new investors to buy Bitcoin Cash thinking they were buying Bitcoin. To many, this is intentionally misleading. When the hard fork occurred, one of the most frustrating aspects of this whole debate is that the miners and each node actually voted as to which fork they would support and which one would maintain the Bitcoin name and the BTC ticker, and which one would be the fork and not maintain that name. And resoundingly, the Bitcoin original fork maintained its superiority with almost 82% of the vote. 7,640 of the nodes voted to maintain the original Bitcoin ledger, whereas only about 1,700 voted for the new ledger, the new Bitcoin Cash fork. Now, it's worth noting that when the original vote happened during the hard fork, the Bitcoin community voted that the original chain, the original Bitcoin, not the new Bitcoin Cash chain, would preserve the Bitcoin name and the BTC ticker. That vote resoundingly went in favor of the original Bitcoin, which is part of the reason why it's so frustrating that the Bitcoin Cash community continues to insist that it should actually be called Bitcoin. And yet, the Bitcoin Cash supporters believe that this is totally justified, as they believe that their version of Bitcoin is the original version. And while this might seem a bit outlandish, they're actually not alone and have received support from Vitalik Buterin of all people. There are also large claims that there has been rampant censorship on Reddits, subreddits such as r/Bitcoin, which really is a cultural nexus for the cryptocurrency community. Censoring posts on r/Bitcoin is equivalent to silencing certain parts of the population. It has also been pretty well documented that this censorship does occur, specifically because of a moderator named Thamos. Now, regardless of where you sit on this debate, I truly believe that censorship in any form is truly unjust. So for that reason, I'm against censorship. And I don't mean to say that I support one side or the other, but it's important to know that censorship has occurred. And this has really ignited a total fire under the Bitcoin Cash community, and they have become extremely vocal about what they believe their value points are versus Bitcoin. However, it's worth noting that the Bitcoin original community has implemented something called segregated witness, or SegWit, which allows them to batch transactions into the block, effectively raising the size of the block, or how many transactions can go in a block. So for that reason, Bitcoin original has scaled without the need for a fork. And they're adding a layer 2 scaling solution called Lightning Network, which essentially functions like a checking account where you can take your Bitcoin, which you can think of as a savings account, do a transaction to send it to your Lightning account, and then from there you can have fast, nearly instantaneous, and almost free transactions. Now, to many in the Bitcoin original community, they see this as the right scaling solution without the need to constantly fork, upgrade the code, and fracture the community. The Bitcoin Cash folks disagree with this, thinking that this is a dogmatic belief that you must keep the block size at 1 megabyte and that you can never fork or upgrade the code or protocol. It's worth also noting that the original Bitcoin team has no intention of always preserving the 1 megabyte block size. They're not dogmatically set in that belief. They wanted to explore other potential solutions before expanding the freeway, if you will. Just like Elon Musk is now building tunnels under the ground where hundreds of layers of tunnels can make people move at light speed, whereas expanding the freeway doesn't really alleviate traffic at all. And obviously this has been proven out as Bitcoin Cash is looking to fork again to 32 megabytes and probably again and again and again. So some of the allegations that the original Bitcoin community is too dogmatic or too set in its ways are a little bit misplaced. Now, there are valid arguments on both sides of the debate, but there are also things that are never valid, like censorship and intentionally misleading people. The allegations against the original Bitcoin community are that they censor the Bitcoin Cash community, and the allegations against the Bitcoin Cash community are that they purposefully co-opt the Bitcoin brand to confuse new investors into investing in that Bitcoin instead of the original Bitcoin that most likely they intended to invest in. To be fair, there is a lot of nuance that I've left out of this debate here, but I just wanted to give you a quick summary of the points and the argument that is happening in the community and why one side disagrees with the other. Personally, I believe that Bitcoin Cash has some advantages over Bitcoin. However, so do many altcoins. So in my opinion, comparing Bitcoin Cash only to Bitcoin is not fair. Bitcoin is Bitcoin for many reasons, and when they want to upgrade it, they're looking for different, more logical ways, such as SegWit, which has been extremely successful at lowering fees and increasing the speed of transactions. Lightning Network is also on the brink of being ready and truly shows signs of allowing for almost instantaneous transactions across the Bitcoin network without the need for a hard fork. So therefore, I think the original Bitcoin community has some vindication in feeling like they had the right idea. However, Bitcoin Cash certainly should be vindicated somewhat as well in creating a coin that is, to this day, faster and cheaper to use. However, when you compare Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash, I feel like it's just too much of a blinded discussion. The truth is, Bitcoin Cash is a team building a challenger to Bitcoin, much like every other cryptocurrency on the market. Bitcoin Cash, in my humble opinion, is just another altcoin. And so if we're going to compare transaction times, fees, all of these things that Bitcoin Cash loves to talk about, then we need to compare it to Nano, to Ripple, to Stellar Lumens, to all of the great technology that's emerging in this space. It can't just be this sort of blinded discussion attacking Bitcoin, the oldest cryptocurrency, which is, of course, easy to tear down for things like transaction times and speeds. While there might be some validity to the arguments that Bitcoin Cash is making, I feel like the discussion is simply too narrow when you compare only Bitcoin Cash to Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin Cash should be compared on its merits to literally every single altcoin. But that's enough for my opinion. I'm very curious to hear what you all think. Which side of this debate are you on? Are you holding one versus the other? Are you anti-Bitcoin original? Or are you pro-Bitcoin Cash? Or vice versa? Please let me know. I'm very curious to know how the community reacts to both of these coins and all of the crazy propaganda spin machine that has been unleashed upon the subreddits and the deep community. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, and hopefully this can clear up some of the confusion if you had any. Obviously, if you like content like this, I encourage you to subscribe, as I do videos just like this each and every day on this channel. My name's Elio Trades, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you with me today on FUD TV, and I'll see you very soon on the next episode.